Ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum, welcome. Today we have interview with my supervisor, Rafni Bustami. I am ا.م.د. I am a PhD student in University of Science Malaysia in Center for Policy Research and International Studies. Today we talk about methodology because this is very important topic to talk with that, and also I want to translate that to Arabic. This is active, or this is interview for my people to Iraq, and also for my people to Arabic nations, and also for all around the world. So today now we will start with my supervisor, Dr. محمد Rafni Bustami. Assalamu alaikum, Doctor.
Wa alaikum assalam.
Thank you for this opportunity.
Welcome. Thank you.
Okay. First of all, Doctor, we need to introduce yourself for people. You can?
Sure. I introduce myself.
Yes.
Okay. What is it? My name is Muhammad Rafni Bustami. Which camera am I looking at? Right here, that camera, right? My name is Muhammad Rafni bin Bustami. I'm a faculty member, also a researcher at the Center for Policy Research and International Studies. It is the research center that is focused mainly in social sciences, and it's also the oldest research center, social science research center in Malaysia. My background is in sociology mainly. My undergraduate was in first degree is from Purdue University, United States, West Lafayette, and then University of Wisconsin, my master's, and then my PhD in London School of Economics and Political Science in London, and I'm now teaching research methodology for all non-science postgraduate students in University of Science Malaysia. Aside from that, I also research on issues regarding ethnic communities, particularly in the Malay archipelago, also known as Nusantara, migrants, migration, and corporate social responsibility, on foresight, future studies, and religious pluralism.
Very nice. So, Doctor, when I came here to Malaysia, and this is university and this is center, and when I meet with you many times, and we will start my thesis with you, I found this is the first difference between Iraqi sociology or Arabic sociology, and between sociology here is the methodology. As you know, the methodology is very important because it's fundamental for research, or cornerstone to research. So, the methodology in Iraq and in Arab, I think, is they use the classic methodology, but here is the update methodology. Why? Because we study here in this university. This is a global university. This university has communicate with the universities around the world. So for this reason, they use update methodology. So today we need to talk about that. So what kind of research method strategies here in the center?
Okay, let me share with you my take on research methodology first, as a general concept of research methodology. Research methodology is a very broad topic, and it's actually there's actually a weakness of a topic because of the breadth and depth of research methodology, and the relevance of research methodology in basically all fields of social sciences. Now, what does it mean? It means that it has a variety of paradigms, right? And methodology, you'll find there are different conventions in different fields. So in the management, economics will employ different type or approach of methodology. Management will do it differently. Psychology might do it differently. Education might do it differently. Sociology, political science might share a lot of commonalities, but there are also differences. Even within the normal social science, anthropology, sociology also will have some differences. Although right now there are overlaps between the methodology. You find that, and then the communication, the School of Arts, School of Fine Arts, right, or faculty, or whichever term you use, right, they have their own conventions, right, of methodology, and different methods are being used. Not only that, they have different standards of what is considered good, what is not considered good. You know, what is the standard that a particular research must have, or must at least have, right? So you might hear research and development as a methodology, which is weird for some other fields in social sciences, might not be weird for some fields, right? You might see the proof, the burden of proof is heavier for certain fields, for certain subjects, compared to certain other subjects, right? So it's much easier to carry out certain arguments in certain fields as opposed to other fields. So and you see that mixture of standards, methods, data collection methods, and the standards of what makes a good finding or not a good finding, right? And so the term research methodology, if you use widely, it is very broad, yeah. And that is alone in social sciences, right? You can talk about research methodology in a wider sense, which is the sciences, right? That would be even wider. So my focus is mainly in the social sciences, and of course humanities, yeah.
Yes. So I found here, especially when I attend with you many lectures, we talk about there is many strategies you use there and here. So we need to understand or explain to us what are these strategies you use until we can skip to another topic.
Sure. Okay.
Yes.
All right. That's actually a very important and relevant and crucial question. Yeah, a very important point there about research strategies and research paradigms. And oftentimes, a lot of causes, sometimes faculties and schools de-emphasize or neglect completely, yeah, the idea of paradigms and research strategies, right? When I first started to teach these research strategies and philosophies, right, and I was in a class, in a course that has different professors teaching this subject called philosophy of social research in the social science, and there were, among them were political scientists, anthropologists, economists, sociologists. So each of them came in and gave a different perspective of what is a good research, what is not a good research, how should a research be carried out, and the victims were the students, right? The students get confused, right? What is this inductive, deductive, and then sometimes what is even worse is even the professors, the lecturers got confused themselves because they do not have that clarity, right? So what I did, and together with the professor who's a methodologist himself, right? His name is Professor Norman Blakey. He's no longer teaching. He has some very important books published in research methodology, and he's regarded as one of the best or top methodologists in the world. Right? His name is Norman Blakey. So what we did was that we gather all the different different approaches to social research, and so we classify them. There are basically 4 research strategies, right? So the first is often what we hear about, the inductive, and the second is the deductive, the third is the retroductive, the fourth is abductive, right? So the inductive research strategy is a type of research strategy that is that focuses on data as as the king, right? The data is king. You start the research by focusing on data, and it is very much consistent with scientific approach to studying anything, right? So you start, you don't start with a presupposition. So you go into, so this is the philosophy underlying is positivism. So inductive research strategy, the underlying philosophy is positivism, right? So but I know that a lot of social scientists would critique positivism and inductive research strategy, but before that we must understand that inductive research strategy and positivism was born out of a period in the society where knowledge, right, was under the control of theologians, right? Theologians were holding on to power, were hoarding to knowledge, and anyone who wants to learn anything would have to go and refer and learn to the theologians. So these religious people were interpreting knowledge, and the assumption is if you want to understand the world, you must understand the world through our eyes, through our interpretation of the world, right? And at that time, there were also scholars, and the scholars are themselves they are not atheists. They are Christians themselves, right? But they say, well, there's another system of knowing besides the revealed knowledge through scriptures and sacred writings and divine revelations from dreams from God and all that, right? And God speaks to us in different ways as well, not just through the scriptures, not through sacred texts, but through the world, through environment. We can study the logic of God, the thoughts of God through understanding the world, right?
Right.
So if we understand the laws of the universe, right, like the law of gravity, the law of action and reaction, we can understand God's thoughts, right? We can understand the universe without necessarily relying on the theologians, right? So this is a tradition that where positivism was born, and inductive research strategy, that is the primacy of observation, right? They put a lot of emphasis on data. So anything that is not observable is not a scientific object.
Right.
It could be a religious object. You get a dream, you see some ghosts, you see some, a prophet came to you, or some angels came to you. That's good, right? Yes. But it's not a scientific.
It's scientific.
It's not scientific, right?
Spiritual.
It's spiritual.
Yeah.
It's spiritual. It's religious, right? And understand that they are not that the scientists, right? The scholars are atheists. They are not against religion in that sense, right? But they want to study the world using a different system of knowledge.
Different physical.
Yeah, through observations, right?
Observation.
And they don't want to get monopolized, dominated by the theologians, right?
Yes. Right.
And by using observation, so they have control over the object of study. So if something is not observable, if it's not empirical, it is not a scientific object. Yes, so that is inductive.
Inductive, right.
Yeah. So that is the first strategy. So the second one is the deductive research, right? So deductive research says, well, hold on, if data is the logic of building knowledge, right? If you start with data and you rely on data, right? And you say you are researching the world without any presupposition, right? Without biases, right? Like a clean slate of paper. You go and collect whatever data, just like the CSI, the criminal scene investigators, right? Collect all the data, you know, and the data will lead you to the truth, so to say, right? But the deductive research strategy and its underlying philosophy, which is critical rationalism by Karl Popper, people like that, they are critical to orthodoxies, to orthodox thinking, to dogma, right? So they argue, this school of thought argue, the critical rationalism argue that if we seek to find certain things, we'll find it, right? And we are only guided by that thinking, by that paradigm. And oftentimes people in the East being referring to the communist bloc, right, would find justification to their ideology. People in the West, right, the free marketeers, will find truth according to what they believe is the truth. All right. So the idea of social scientists, the idea of researchers, is not to affirm theories, but to challenge theories, right? And so if inductive research strategy and the positivist, they want to know the ultimate truth, the laws of universe, right? The laws, you cannot shake these laws. These are truth. The deductive research strategy approach and the critical rationalists say we can never know the truth. We can come closer and closer to the truth. We can never know the ultimate truth, right? So the method is to falsify, to reject false theories, to question, to be critical of existing established theories and knowledge, right? So we do not believe in communism, we do not believe in capitalism per se, but we test the idea, we test the theory by collecting data to test the theory. So the object, the purpose of social scientists is to falsify the untruth, to reject false theories, false knowledge, to the point that whenever you eliminate the other false theories, right, you are coming closer and closer to the truth, because what you have is tentatively true, right, until it's proven false. So it is not an arrogant approach to understanding reality, it is humble approach, and it is critical approach. So for them, if the inductive research says an object that cannot be observed is not a scientific object, for them a theory that cannot be falsified is not a scientific theory. So for them the science is in the logic of disproving the theory. So if you say you come up with a theory and theory cannot be disproved, and that's not a scientific theory, it can be some other theory, right? It's not a scientific theory. So the test of a good science, a good theory, is whether the theory can be disproved using data. So you come up with data to disprove the theory.
Yes, you know the truth, doctor, is infinity, I think, and it's very large, the truth, very large and beyond our mind.
Yes.
So especially in sociology, maybe the theory in 5 years ago is the truth, but now it's everything changed. For example, this is a strategy approach. You can test this theory, is it still valid or not valid, to explain the reality.
Yes. And we see the evolving thoughts of a lot of theorists, thinkers, and just I think a couple of days ago, Farid Zakaria, the chief editor of Newsweek, right? He was writing about how politics right now is becoming more dominant than economics in the context of global world, in the context of globalization. So we might make sense economically, but it doesn't make sense politically, so it can be rejected. So like the Brexit, like what you see, make America great again. All these are not economic philosophy, but much more political and ideological, civilizational kind of.
That's right.
It's not no. It doesn't make inflation go down, right? It actually pushes inflation up, right? But the politics becoming more important. Whereas if you look at the argument in the 80s, 90s, they talk about democracy and the end of history and all that, right? So and this is what critical rationalism argues about. Look, a theory or a paradigm is only true until a new theory comes up and disprove it. So there is no ultimate truth. It can come closer and closer to truth. So deductive research is about the coming up with hypothesis A, B, C, D, and eliminate A, eliminate B, eliminate C. Right. So that is deductive research, right? Deductive research strategy. So and deductive research strategy is in some ways it's opposite to inductive, right? So inductive begins with data.
Yes.
Deductive begins with theory.
With theory, yes, right.
Right. So and they say, well, which theory explains this, right? Well, theories. Which theories?
Yes.
And you might find that well, A explains this part, B theory explains the other part. You cannot explain all. But if you look at A, B, C, you can see a closer picture to the what we want to see, understand, right? But A cannot describe everything, so that is very much deductive thinking. So you start from theory and then a hypothesis, and then you collect data, and then that's where it goes to what is called a critical testing process, and then you will falsify theories, and falsification of theories is actually a good thing, and so sometimes some research masters and PhD, they disheartened whenever their theory is proven wrong, the hypothesis is proven wrong, right? It is not bad, right? Actually, that is actually a good thing, right? And that is a good thesis strategy to find a theory and disprove it. And it is actually a better risk management theory too, risk management strategy too, because it's hard to prove a theory right. It's easier to prove a theory wrong, because all you need to do is find data that is inconsistent with that theory, and then you can reject that theory. So deductive research allows you to do that, right?
Very nice.
Especially big theories. Big theories, yeah. You're taking a giant, you're fighting a giant. Oh, that's good. So that is deductive research strategy.
The third one.
The third research strategy is retroductive research strategy. Retroductive research strategy, arguably, is the boldest, the bravest research strategy of all, because they say it is applicable to both science and non-sciences, right? Retroductive research strategy would look at inductive research or deductive research. Say, well, this is too shallow, right? Why are we just looking at dependent variables, collect, and then looking at hypothesis testing, this is too shallow. This is not deep enough, So if you see, if the chicken crows and the sun rises, right? Does it mean that because of the chicken crow the sun rises? There might be correlation, but it's no causation there, right?
Yes.
It might not be even an explanation behind it, right? And all the explanation is not the most important explanation between the chicken and the sun, right?
Yes, right.
If you want to understand why the sun rises, it has very little to do with the chicken early in the morning, right? The sun might be affecting the chicken, but the chicken doesn't affect the sun.
Right.
So all this independent variable correlations are very surface, superficial to retroductive research. So if you look at, for instance, another example, right? Juvenile delinquency, kids with problems, right? Cases where children have problems, and broken, problematic family, right? Problematic family, juvenile delinquency. Problematic family, juvenile delinquency. you might find this correlation, but retroductive research wants to know why this leads to that.
Yes.
Right? Not just the you know.
Not to connect.
By the way, juvenile delinquency is also produced by non-broken family, right? A lot of families, you know, both parents are intact, right? They have brothers and sisters, a dog or a cat or whatever. They still have problem with the kid, right? So it's not necessarily because of broken house, a broken home, or problematic marriage, right? But retroductive research wants to know what is the connection between this empirical reality. So retroductive research argues that reality has many levels, has many realms. And for inductive, deductive, they will tend to look at empirical level, the empirical reality, right? And yet, retroductive research strategy would say, well, there are three levels of reality: the empirical, the actual, and the real, right? So let me give you an example. Yeah. Not the argument is that not everything that exists can be seen. This sounds a bit mystical, right? Not now. Retroductive research strategy would argue even further than that. Many, right, of causes of social reality are not seen. You cannot see it, right? But you got to prove the existence of it. I'll give you a more physical example. Now, who has seen magnet, right? Magnet, you know what magnet is, the one
Yes.
that attracts other steel, right? The magnet.
Yes.
But who has seen the power of magnet?
Right.
No one has seen the power of magnet, right?
Right.
What we see whenever you put a magnet and a paper clip goes to it, right? We see the manifestation of the power, not the power itself. We can only see the manifestation of the power. So the power exists, right?
Exists, but we cannot see it.
We cannot see it.
Yes.
So you put a magnet there. We say, you know, the magnet has power. Well, for the people who study empirical level, they cannot see that. They don't. They might say, well, what is that? There's no proof of that, right?
Yes.
But at the reality of the real reality, it exists. The power exists. Just like veto power, right? Who has seen veto power? No one has seen veto power. But you've seen veto power being exercised? Yes.
Exercise.
Yes,
right.
yes. Often
I think Dr. Haim say we cannot see the society. We just see the individuals.
That's right. That's right.
But
right.
the society consists from the traditions and customs and values.
Yes,
We can
yes.
feel
Yes,
that
yes.
because this practice we practice
Yes,
that.
yes. And to affirm that, what Anthony Giddens would say, well, from his structuration theory, is, you know, structure doesn't exist. It only exists in the minds of the people.
Right.
And in books, you know, people write about in memories, right? Where is structure? You cannot touch structure.
Right.
But structure exists with actions.
With action.
You reproduce structures,
Yes,
right? Certain
right.
patriarchal structures or whatever structure you want, but it only exists through the actions, right? When the action stops, the structure stops, right? So another example, let me give you another biological example. Photosynthesis. Who has seen, you know, photosynthesis, right?
Yes.
The process by which plants produce energy and grow, and you know, who has seen photosynthesis? No one has seen, you know, oh, this is photosynthesis. No one's seen it, right? But scientists can assemble the process of photosynthesis and to show how water is being absorbed, the solar energy.
And they see the results.
And they see the result,
Yes.
right? So there's the from the leaf, you know, the turn energy, solar into chemical energy and all that, right? It is the process cannot be seen, but the process exists, right? So what is it? They say for retroductive research strategy, they say, well, we want to see the why. How does this broken family or problematic family leads to juvenile delinquency? You want to see the process. Now, social researchers must come up with this explanation, right? Not just this the chicken and the sun. It doesn't
Yes.
mean anything.
Yes,
Right?
right.
It's too simple, it's too shallow, it's empirical. So they talk about three levels, the real, the actual, and the empirical. So for instance, the magnet, right, is real. The power of the magnet is real, right? Psychological power is real, for instance, right? It's real. Whenever, and then the actual is whenever there's an event, right? Certain events are seen, certain events are not seen, right? From events we have empirical. When it is seen, it is empirical, right? When it's not seen, it's just events, right?
Events. Okay.
They are not. So the real might produce events, might not produce events, but they exist. The power of magnet exists.
Right.
The power of veto exists, right? And the veto might be exercised in one way or another, or the power of the what do you call it? The Security Council, the 5 core. They might exercise their power, right? Sometimes the events of the power, they might not call it veto power, but they exercise through the. There might be events, but we do not know the events, but they exist, right? But sometimes the empirical power exists, right? So whenever the Security Council come up with something to condemn Israel against Palestinian, US will use its veto power to stop the condemnation of
Right.
Israel, right?
Yes.
So you see, it's being exercised. You see the empirical, right? So veto power is being exercised. It is seen. It's been documented, right? But there are different ways of exercising United States power besides veto power, right? So they actually have power, right? So for the retroductive research strategy is for them, if inductive starts with data, deductive starts with theory. Retroductive say it doesn't matter where you start, data or
Yes.
data or theory, right? It doesn't matter as long as you build a model to explain this why.
Why? Independent varietal, undependent varietal.
That's right.
The relationship.
The relationship, the process,
Yes, process.
the what is called the generative mechanism.
Yes.
What generates this reality? We see the surface, the empirical, right?
Yes.
The paper clip coming to the magnet, right? We just see that, right? But why, you know?
Yes.
That is the explanation there.
Dissemination.
And we see the tree grows, but why? You know? That is the social researchers. That is the aim of social research, to explain the why, and to come up with a process and to explain the generative mechanism underlying the process, right?
Very nice.
Mm.
Okay.
So let me give you another example of social example.
Okay.
Okay. Now, if I'm not sure in Iraq you have traffic jams, but in Malaysia you do have
Yes,
traffic jams.
of course we have.
In KL especially, in KL we have traffic jams. If people think, right, let's avoid the traffic jam, right? So we should not go. What is it? When the office office hours is up to 5 o'clock, right? 5 o'clock, you don't go home yet. You go home at 6 o'clock, so you avoid the traffic jam, right?
Yes.
So avoid the traffic jams, because 5 o'clock there'll be traffic, so you go back at 6 o'clock, right? Now, if everyone thinks that way, at 6 o'clock there'll be traffic jam, right? And that's what happened to KL, right? You have 5 o'clock there's traffic, 6 o'clock there's traffic, 7 o'clock there's also traffic there, because there are a group of people thinking there's to avoid the traffic, they go later. And because a lot of people think that way, you create traffic during that time, right? Now, how do you prove that? Because the thinking about avoiding the traffic is unseen. It's in the minds of the people. Right.
Right.
And that's what we talk about, the real. So in retroductive research strategy, it's about how do you demonstrate the real? How do you come up with a model to explain this process where people, you know, have this thinking about I want to avoid the 5 o'clock traffic, though I go back 6 o'clock. So you come up, well, they might have survey questions, you might have observation, you might have interviews. You got to construct this reality, this explanation about why traffic jam occurs at 6 o'clock or at 7 o'clock.
7 o'clock.
So that's how retroductive. I'm giving a simple example.
Yes,
there.
thank you.
Right?
Yes.
And of course, traffic jam is not just about the psychology of the people, it's about the road structure, the number of the cars, the traffic lights, and a combination of things, right? The public transport, so whether it rains or not.
Yes, of course, the researcher should take the comprehensive observation observed about this phenomena. Yes, right. So the fourth one.
The fourth one. So the first one inductive, second one is deductive, the third one is retroductive, and the third retroductive, the philosophy underlying it is scientific realism. Scientific realism. Second one is critical rationalism, and the third one is scientific realism. Realism because they want to look at the real.
Yes.
Right? Yeah, it's scientific, right? It doesn't run away from science. It wants to look at real, but reality exists in three spheres. No, and that's the power, the strength of it. So abductive research, abductive research comes from the word abduct. Meaning to capture, to kidnap, to kidnap somebody. So abductive research strategy, the assumption about the world, assumption about social reality is that social reality is a social construction, right? Social reality is a social construction. So if I want to understand the chair, right, why is this chair constructed this way? I go and ask the person who manufactured the chair. I go and ask the carpenter behind the chair, right?
Yes.
Rather than theorize what is this chair about, to analyze I just go and ask the carpenter, right? The carpenter will tell you, or the chair maker will tell you, well, I built the chair this way because it is much more stable this way. I use plastic because plastic is not as expensive as mahogany wood, I use this material because this material is more lasting, right? I design it this way so it's for office use, it's not for home use. I design it this way so that you can sit at the table, not a resting chair. And so the whole meanings and the practice, the underlying interpretation of the social action is is owned and constructed by the social actors. So if you want to understand social reality, you go and ask social actors, right? Simply put. So abductive research says the entry to understand the social world is through the eyes of the social actors. So we do not start with data, we do not start with theory, or we do not start with data or theory like retroductive. We start with the social actors. Let them define what the relevant data is. Let them define what the relevant theory is. Right? So you might have certain conceptions, certain theories about why the chair is like this, and then you collect data about the chair. The data is because of this, because it fits into my theory. Whereas it's different from the theory of the social actors who created the social reality. So, for instance, now this is I was following this war between Russia and Ukraine and China in between, right? China seemed to be taking a much more at first neutral and then distancing itself from Russia. But then why is China taking that stand, right? Why is Russia not like the rest of the world? Against Russia? Why is like that? Well, China has a lot of experiences with the United States, not pleasant experiences. So, as they see it, right, interfering with their, the country's politics, internal issues. They have Taiwan there as well. They have Hong Kong there as well, right? Although Hong Kong and Taiwan is slightly different from Ukraine, because Hong Kong and Taiwan were part of China and it's been promised to be part of China and all that. It's a different story, right? But there are similarities, commonalities, right? And China has been practicing the idea of among the veto powers, right? They are among the country that is most often to take that to abstain. They don't oppose, they don't support, they abstain. They abstain. Right? So they want to be a country that is known to be neutral, but they also do not like what United States is doing to them. So that is the social actors' point of view of how they see China see, right?
Let's see the social structure.
The social structure, right? So and had it been not United States, for instance, I don't know, take another country that's defending Ukraine, more Sweden, right? Sweden come in and help Ukraine. Maybe China will respond differently. Yes, okay, right? Because Sweden has not been interfering with China, right? But United States,
It's the problem.
it's the problem. And then Biden going there and say, yeah, China, stop, you don't be careful. If you do this, there'll be repercussions, and we'll be, China is a big country, right? they're a sovereign country. You don't speak to a big sovereign, economic, rich country that way, maybe, right? So they might, so the interpretation of reality might be different. That is state, right? And that's true for individuals, social groups, and all that as well.
Yes, until we can understand social structure or social phenomena, we should go to the social actors.
Social actors, yes.
To can understand.
Yes, and they will come up with their own theories. They'll come up with their own logic of why they act that way, or why they do not act that way. Now, in abductive research strategy, so the idea of insights and meanings and interpretation of social actors are extremely important. That is the core of it, right? And sometimes the social actors themselves are not aware of certain things, right? So we do what we call, a probing, sensitizing concept. Do you do this because of that? How about this? We can ask those questions, and they will say, "Oh, the reason I was doing this because I went back in when I was younger. I have experienced this, or they will reflect back. So if they do not have the present consciousness, the social researcher will have to dig and get to the consciousness, and then by understanding the consciousness of the social actors, and there might be more than one consciousness, so there might be more than one typology of social actors or social actors paradigm, right? There might be 2 or 3 or 4. So different social actors or different groups of social actors might interpret social reality differently as well. So now that is also the job of social researchers, to tell the story of the social actors themselves. So the social actors will come up with certain themes, certain concepts, certain emphasis, where they think is more important, and the connection between the themes and the concepts, and we are the one that need to tie this together and confirm, hey, this is what you think about, this is what so a lot of verification. So the difference is the data and the theory come from the social actors, not from the researcher. Now there's 2 schools of thoughts in abductive research too. One school of thought says our job is to describe reality in a systematic way, in a technical way. The other school of thought says, well, there's something called false consciousness. Social actors can only see within certain paradigm, within certain scope. They might not see beyond what they can see. So for rubber tappers, when the tires, tires when you tap, tires come from rubber, which come from the rubber tree, right? So rubber tree might not understand the commodity exchanges in New York. That what happens in New York or London, where they trade rubber, right, might affect the prices of rubber, might affect the level of income and all that. They might not see it. So we as researchers, we as social scientists would see all this higher level.
Can explain.
Yes, yeah. So we got to come up with our own explanation over and above their explanation. So some say no, you should not do that. Some say yes, you should do that. So different school of thoughts even within abductive research, right? So what is I want to say? The abductive research eventually they might not the why occurs from the social actors themselves. It is there is explanation of the social actors of the why, right? But there are different school of thoughts in abductive research. So look, social actors might see a different why, but then there's a different level of whys that's happening there, right? So what is it? Yeah. So sometimes we understand the reality as they see it, but sometimes the reality is more than what they see.
Yes, I want to ask you what kind of method, how can researcher get answer from the social actors? But before that, we should go to the data collection.
Data collection.
Yes. What kind of data collection? I mean, how many data collection and research?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Many kinds of